I am 40 years old and my wife is 41. While I have frequently traveled for my job, my wife holds the position of an executive secretary. After being married for 17 years, my wife approached me with a surprising request to explore an open marriage. This caught me completely off guard as I had never anticipated such a proposal. Fortunately, we do not have children, so I do not have to explain to them what an open marriage is and what it is for. My wife has had some issues that have led to her not being able to have children. Throughout our relationship, I have remained faithful and committed to her, believing it to be mutual. However, she seems to feel limited in our marriage. Although she has feelings for me, she wants something more. Right now, I'm experiencing a mixture of emotions: anger, hurt, and betrayal. While I do not like the idea of an open marriage, I also do not want to lose my wife. So despite my reluctance and with a heavy heart, I agreed to an open marriage, but with certain rules. First, we have agreed that neither of us will invite anyone to our homes. Second, we have access to each other's phones, which promotes transparency and no secrets. Third, if either of us decides to become intimate with other partners, it is mandatory that we use protective equipment. We have also decided to look at each other's profiles. After finalizing the ground rules, my wife turned to me and said she felt relieved, as if a weight had been lifted off of her. At the same time, I feel the opposite. I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. I do not know what to do in this situation, or if it is even within my power. What I am sure of is my deep love for my wife. The mere thought of someone else being able to touch her is mind-boggling. As a result, we decided to sign up for a dating app. Our choice fell on one platform, namely Tinder. We studied each other's dating profiles, identifying those who seemed not only attractive, but also looking for additional partners. After a while, we studied each other's cell phones. It turned out that I did not find a single match in my profile, while my wife's was quite different. She had accumulated over 100 matches, but almost half of them consisted of single men. However, she realized that chatting with single men did not fit within the limits we had set, so she eliminated those matches. This pattern continued for about a week until we met another couple who were also considering opening their marriage. My wife was attracted to this woman's husband. He was impressively tall and in great physical shape. His wife was also good-looking. She had a prominent bust and was a little overweight, but she was still quite attractive. It was amazing to learn that people all over the world are in open marriages. Days later, my wife received a message from the couple expressing interest in meeting. As a result, we agreed to meet at a nearby cafe. The first time we met, there was an immediate attraction between us that made us all feel comfortable. We exchanged contact information and a week later, went out to dinner together. We then visited their home for some fun. This is where the story takes an intriguing turn. The guy's wife and I hit it off and we kissed. With a smile on their faces, my wife and boyfriend retired to a private room. A few hours later, we reconvened in their living room, laughing and discussing the encounter that had taken place. It turned out that for all of us, this experience was a first. By common consent, we decided to repeat the experience the following weekend, this time getting together at our house. While I'm still trying to figure out if I'm comfortable with this decision, my wife's happiness is paramount to me. However, as the days passed, I began to notice that my wife was breaking one of the established rules. She showed some secrecy in using her phone, and I decided to talk about it. She explained that she keeps in touch with people she met on Tinder. I told her that such communication was not within the agreed-upon limits and asked her to give me her phone for verification. Although hesitant at first, she eventually handed me her phone. After looking through her messages, I found that she had sent several guys sexually explicit pictures of herself. In addition, she was communicating with all these guys who were apparently single. I was overcome with anger. I couldn't believe she could do such a thing, breaking the rules we had established. I discussed the situation with her, and she replied that she was just having fun. I asked her, "How would you react if I sent explicit pictures to other women?" She replied that she would be upset, to which I replied, "That is exactly how I am feeling right now." We came to a consensus that she should erase all messages and delete photos, ceasing communication with these people. Although she promised to honor this request, I wasn't sure I could trust her again. Soon the weekend came and the couple we were scheduled to meet canceled, leaving my wife and me alone. My wife was disappointed, but had to deal with it. Nevertheless, I was bothered by the thought that she might not be satisfied with our arrangement and wanted to socialize with other people. After dinner, we returned home to enjoy our time together. Unfortunately, my wife's phone kept ringing and she began to engage in secretive behavior with it again. I asked about the calls, but she brushed them off, saying they meant nothing. Skeptical, I decided to pick up her phone and examine the messages. To my horror, I discovered that she had started sending explicit pictures and messages again. Frustrated, I told her that if she continued to violate our arrangement, we would have to reconsider our open marriage. Upset, she relented and promised to stop. I wasn't sure I could trust what she was saying. The next day when I came home from work, my wife wasn't home. When she came in, I inquired about the day and asked to see her phone. After looking through it, I found no indication of any secret conversations. Another week passed, and I noticed that my wife was pulling away from me. The couple we had been chatting with, who were also in an open marriage, we hadn't seen each other. After that weekend, I noticed her secretive behavior with her phone again. This was the third incident that made me say I want to end my open marriage. She replied that she disagreed, stating that she didn't want to end our open marriage. She found pleasure in being involved with another man and would like to continue to do so. According to her, it added a spark to our relationship. I then came to the conclusion that my decision was final. Realizing that she didn't care about my feelings, I agreed and left it at that, fully aware that my marriage had come to an end. Initially, I was not comfortable with the idea of an open marriage. The next day, while my wife was at work, I contacted a moving company to arrange for transportation of my belongings. I informed them of my urgent need to leave the house. Typically, my wife would get home around 6:00 p.m., and I expected her to arrive by 7:00 p.m. I managed to pack my belongings and leave the house a little before 7:00. I moved into a house my father had given me that was fully furnished. I only needed to buy a TV, and by about 8 p.m. it was all done. Meanwhile, my wife kept calling me. She got worried when she realized I wasn't home. I calmly explained to her that I did not support the idea of an open marriage, and that I thought it was better for us to go our separate ways. Despite her pleas and requests to come home, I was determined that our relationship was over. I moved out and had no intention of coming back. A few days passed, and she came to me to talk to me. She kept begging me to give her another opportunity. However, I explained to her that I would not go back to her because of her obvious disregard for my feelings and lack of empathy. After I decided against open marriage, it became obvious that she was primarily interested in her own preferences. That's when she brought up marriage counseling. She explained that she hoped we could save our marriage by settling all the contradictions. I, however, refused. I told her that I didn't think it made sense to go to marriage counseling. I saw no point in spending money on marriage counseling and decided to go to a divorce lawyer. When I informed her of my decision, she left the house in tears, apologizing and begging me to change my mind. In response, I told her that I would think about it. A few weeks later, I spoke to a lawyer and expressed my desire for a divorce. He asked me why, and I told him the whole story. He said that given that we had no children, the process shouldn't be too difficult. I inquired about alimony payments and told him I didn't want the house. I had 3 other houses that I was willing to offer her, and my attorney could not give a definite answer about alimony. He said it was up to the judge to make the final decision. Given that my wife works and has a good income, he suggested that the alimony amount might not be very much. He inquired about my confidence regarding the house, and I assured him of my decision. I had owned 3 other homes that were owned outright with no encumbrances. These homes were deeded to me by my father almost 17 years ago, even before I had married my wife. After that, a few weeks later, my wife was officially served with divorce papers. She accused me of being unreasonable, to which I reminded her that she was the one who originally proposed an open marriage. The divorce hearing was finalized quickly. I ended up conceding the house to her, and to my amazement, the judge ruled that I would be required to pay alimony of $500 per month for 6 years. She tried to get a larger amount, but the judge decided that the difference in income was not grounds for it, especially considering her substantial earnings. After the hearing, I gained my freedom. Despite my ex-wife's attempt to apologize, I paid no attention to her gesture. About 4 weeks after the hearing, I received a phone call from the wife of another couple practicing open marriage. She informed me that my ex-wife was dating her husband. I replied, "We finalized our divorce about a month ago," and she was surprised. Then she said something unexpected to me. She offered to come over to my place to have some fun together. I understood the implication, but politely declined, explaining that I wasn't ready to rush things. 3 weeks later, that guy's wife contacted me again and asked if she could come visit. I agreed, and when she arrived at my place, it was obvious that she was upset. I asked what was wrong, and she admitted that her husband and my ex-wife were becoming increasingly close, and she didn't know what to do. I asked who initiated the idea of an open marriage, her or her husband. She replied that they were both in agreement with it from the beginning. I noticed that her husband seemed to be more inclined to the idea of an open marriage. She cried again and I comforted her. I reassured her by saying, "It'll work out." We talked for a while longer, after which she left. Although I could have easily had an affair with her, I decided not to. Eventually, she and her husband reconciled. I later found out that he ended his relationship with my ex-wife and decided to stay with his wife. I wasn't originally going to talk about my experience, but something compelled me to do so. I didn't realize before that open marriages and relationships were not as simple as they seemed. Relationships were so common. This one puzzles me. That such relationships are widespread and popular is hard for me to understand. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. If you enjoyed it, please show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments.